Red Dead Redemption 1 was so ahead of its time. Red Dead Redemption 1 came out 15 years ago in 2010. And I just kind of wanted to honor it today by showing some of the cool details that some games don't even have today. Now we're kind of going to do this from the less important details, the more important details some games don't have. Around the map of Red Dead 1, every now and then in saloons or rich houses, you'll see telephones, the early telephones. Now, there may be more, but the only two I know of is there's one in Thieves Landing and one in Blackwater. Now, one thing I think is really, really cool about this, now this isn't really that important of a detail, but you can shoot the wire and it breaks. You may be thinking, that's not that too insane of a detail, even for 2010. But it breaks where you shoot it. Let's say you shoot it at the end. It breaks at the end. Let's say you shoot it at the front. It breaks at the front. If you shoot it at the middle, it cuts in half. That's insane wire physics for something that doesn't even matter throughout the game. Now it's the same thing. These two kind of connect. In the mission with Irish, while you're going across the boat, the raft to Mexico where it's connected to a rope, you can shoot it. It will mission fail you. But it's the same thing with the phones. No matter, wherever you shoot it, it'll, break realistically in that spot you shot it, which I just think is really cool. I know that's not that important, and I know that's not that crazy, but still. They didn't have to add that detail. They could have just let it break normally or not break at all. So that's pretty cool in my opinion. Alright, on to the next one. Now, I apologize for spending, 2 minutes on that, reason that, thing that really didn't matter all too much. I apologize. Now on to the next one. Out in the distance on hot days, you can see the heat haze. Those lines you see on hot days out in the distance? You can see that. Red Dead 2 doesn't even have that. Now, I will say, Red Dead 1, in my opinion, was a little better at doing smaller details, but Red Dead 2 was better at doing bigger details. I feel like the glass physics were a little better in Red Dead 1 than 2, which we're going to talk about next. So kind of a good way to get into it. Now, I really don't know why I thought this was cool, but it just kind of is. Windows. In Red Dead 1, they break realistically. They, break way more realistically than in Red Dead 2, which I know doesn't matter all that much, which is why it's earlier in the video. And this is something a lot of people didn't notice. At least I noticed it. I thought it was pretty cool. Realistic window shadows. Let's say you break a window, the shadow changes. The lines on the windows, you can see them. If you break the window, you don't see them anymore. Or it realistically shows the ones that are missing. That is insane! Now, I could be wrong, but I believe Red Dead 2 has this too. But then again, 8-year difference. It's almost a decade. I know that doesn't matter at all, which we're kind of starting to get to the things that matter a little more, that made the game really cool. But yeah, I just kind of thought that was cool. Alright, now that we kind of got those small details that are completely irrelevant to the game out of the way, we're kind of going to start to get to the mid-range tier, where they matter a little bit, and it's nice to have them, but you really don't need them in this in the game. It just helps make it feel more immersive, which I like. Now, these first two are more about combat. Now, this first one I'm going to talk about, you've probably heard about in 1,000 YouTube shorts, 1,000 videos, but I'm just going to mention it here today. I'm going to make it quick, so don't worry. Whenever you shoot someone and they're on a ladder, they'll try to hold onto the ladder, which is insane considering Red Dead 2 doesn't even have that. Alright, that's it, because I don't want to go on something y'all probably heard. Alright, next one. Again, this one you've also probably heard a lot, but I'm going to make it quick again, so don't worry. Let's say you're in a gunfight, and you shoot someone in the leg, they'll start limping. But if you shoot both their legs, and they don't die, for a little while, they'll not be able to walk. So they'll be on their knees trying to shoot you, which I thought's really cool considering, again, Red Dead 2 doesn't have that detail, which is still really cool. Now, next up, this is kind of what led me to make this video, which I didn't know about till recently. If you, let's say you're in a gang attack, and not with the law, just in a gang attack or doing something with enemies that aren't the cops, if you put your gun away, you can surrender? Like, I knew if you didn't have that big of a wanted level, you could surrender. But, like, not with the bigger one. But I did not know during gunfights you could surrender, which is insanely cool. And this is about the end of the, like, the mid-range section. I kind of put this all here because, like, one of the main parts of the game is combat. I figured I'd just throw this in here. Anyway, on to, like, kind of, like, the big tier reasons and, like, the big details that, like, kind of made the game crazy. NPC activities and effect on the world. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know with Rockstar games, the NPCs are surprisingly immersive and just fit the world and make the world feel like you're actually in it. And I feel like Red Dead 1 and 2 kind of do this equally well, but the NPCs do jobs and they also like do real life stuff. Like sometimes this is kind of rare. I've only seen it happen to me a few times. You guys might have seen it too. But sometimes you're driving, you could see like people like peeing on rocks and stuff, which I just thought was really cool. You could see them working in towns, and they can even talk to you sometimes. And I just think it's really cool that they interact with their environment like that. Even like for a game that's this old, I just think that's really cool. And still, some games don't even get that right, which is crazy. Now, this next one's kind of similar to the last one, but not really. Now, even some games today don't have this, which I know Red Dead kind of had to have it more than any other game, considering how it was an open world game with not a lot of towns because it was Wild West. But the immersion outside like the towns and stuff is crazy. There's plants you can pick. There's animals that'll attack you sometimes. You can skin them, kill them. And I just think it's really cool being able to do that. And on the road, you'll be able to find some people, like gang attacks at like a wagon. Like they'll try to rob you. There's people that like ask to like challenge you like to a bunch of like hunting challenges, stuff like that. And I just always felt like that was a really cool part of Red Dead. Like let's say you're in a long ride and all of a sudden like you have a lot left and you're just really bored. All of a sudden you have like 10 events to do in the middle of nowhere, which I always thought was really cool to do. And I always thought the world of Red Dead was more immersive than most other games in that time and even now, which I think it's crazy. 15 years after this game came out, it still has immersion better than like 10 times all the games except for Rockstar games, which is kind of crazy. Now, this last one is still kind of a big deal for the game. However, it could have been more of a bigger deal if John knew how to swim.
Why don't we up the ante here? Loser has to strip and jump in the water. Oh, wait. Marston can't swim.
But the details with like how John, like when he gets wet, his clothes look wet. And like whenever he like shoots the water, it actually realistically reacts. Same with dynamite. And like I just feel like they had so much potential for water. Now, I may be wrong, but I swear I saw a clip where the actor of John Marston, Rob Wiedoff, said they originally had swimming animations. However, they decided to cut them last minute because they didn't look that good. Which I personally think was probably meant so you couldn't like leave the map. But still, I mean, maybe I'll trust that. And if I can find the clip, I'll play it right now.
They didn't have the technology when they made Red Dead Redemption to make swimming look as good as they wanted it to look. That's the truth. That's why I wasn't in there, because they didn't want to do it halfway.
Anyway, with all that being said, that's going to be about it for today's video. I really enjoyed looking at the details of Red Dead Redemption 1. It is unfortunate they had to cut out swimming. However, it's alright. If you want, I could do the same thing for like Red Dead 2 or GTA 5. Or, if you guys want, I could make a video of Red Dead 1 talking about the details that are kind of bad and unrealistic. Like, for example, the detail where if you like do Deadeye while holding a Molotov or dynamite, you could just throw it and it lands on a target automatically, no matter how far. Which I thought was kind of unrealistic, and there's a bunch of stuff like that in Red Dead 1, which I could talk about. Anyway, that's going to be about it for today's video. Let me know if there's anything I missed. I probably should have mentioned ragdolls, but it's alright. Anyway, I hope y'all have a great day. I'm trying to get to 250 subscribers by the end of the year. And if I do reach 250 by the end of the year, I'm going to be walking around Red Dead Redemption 1's map 5 times. That means no running, no horses, nothing. Also, special thanks to Edward Does Thumbnails for making the thumbnail in today's video. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Bye!